Well, I'm really looking forward to today. We're up on the Winnebago system, and in particular the upper lakes, and this is where I really grew up fishing and learned a lot about fishing. And I'm with Matt Schiefelbein, one of my good buddies and travel partners for the National Walleye Tour. And I'm just looking forward to going out there having a simple, fun day. We're gonna troll crankbaits behind planer boards, and I'm sure we're gonna stay busy out there.
Oh yeah, I'm sure we'll catch a ton of fish today.
But in particular, it's just one of those places that there's a lot of good eating size fish out here. A lot of that 14 to 18 inch size fish. And so heard the bite's good, looking forward to getting out there. And why don't you join Matt and I today as we show you the next bite.
Just looking for the next bite, next bite, just looking for the next bite.
The Lake Winnebago chain of lakes in Wisconsin is an extremely popular place to fish. It's not known for huge walleyes, but rather a fish fry factory producing tons of eater-sized walleyes. That being said, it's a great place to go get bites and learn the small intricacies of a trolling bite.
Today we're on the Winnebago system, and in particular we're up on the upper lakes of the Winnebago system. And so it's middle of summer, it's August, the water temperatures are 70 degrees plus, and kind of the rule of thumb is generally a lot of these fish slide back to Lake Winnebago to summer for that deeper, cooler water, because a lot of these upper lakes are maybe 7 to 10 feet deep at most. But in certain situations, in certain summers, there's a lot of fish that hang around in these upper lakes because of the food. They naturally migrate up here to spawn into the Fox River, into the Wolf River, and a lot of these marshes in the upper lakes. But they can hang around for quite a while, and sometimes all summer if there's a lot of food up in these upper lakes. There's a lot of shiners up here. There's a lot of bait when it comes to your white bass and your sheephead do a lot of these migrations and spawnings up here. So there's a lot of young of the year. So it's just one of those things where these upper lakes can hang around into that summer time frame and sometimes year round. And so we're up trolling in particular right now Lake Poygan. And so these are a lot of featureless basin lakes up here where these fish are just roaming around chasing schools of those shiners or those white bass or sheephead. So we're using these crankbaits to cover water and see if we can't put our baits in front of a school of these walleyes. Oh, right here. This one smoked it.
There we go. It's always nice when it's the inside one.
Yeah, probably grab the net for this one, Matt.
Yeah, there we go. Right flavor. Ooh.
Little
Anyhow, just a little cute one again, though.
The one good thing is, even though it's a little one, I mean, we were just talking about whether or not we should speed up or go slow, and I had just slowed down, and this thing just smoked it. I mean, as little as this one is, it hit it really hard, but at the end of the day, like, it's a bite, it's a clue. We know now that we probably need to go a little bit slower, so even though it's a little one, it's still gonna help us catch a few more, I think.
The next bite is brought to you by Mercury Marine. Go boldly. Schaefer's Specialized Lubricant. Putting equipment first. Nitro Boats. Performance Fishing Boats. Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Your adventure starts here. Berkeley. Your fish, our science. And Power Pole. Total Boat Control. Closed captioning for the next bite is provided by Whitewater, built to brave the waves.
So when it comes to fishing these open water areas, especially these shallow mudflats or bowl style lakes, you know, one thing to keep in mind is almost everything. Any little piece that you can take, you know, maybe it's water temperature, and you know, for instance, if it's springtime or even this time in the summer, you know, maybe one side has warmer water than the other. A lot of times that's based off of wind, but keeping note of when you set up a pass, when you finish a pass, maybe when you get a bite, if anything changed, if it got colder, if it got warmer. And generally you'll notice a warmer area is gonna obviously have more activity. Another thing in this situation we've seen earlier today, we had a lot of rain, you know, upwards of 5 inches, and there was actually a clean water area we could see once it got light enough this morning where there was just that maybe 6-inch more visibility, 4 inches at most, but there was definitely a line, and that's where those sheephead were gone, and that's where the edge of where we did get a couple walleye bites this morning. You can never overlook what your electronics are telling you, especially side imaging. And side imaging is gonna cover a lot of water, which is gonna allow you to see far, see how many fish, or maybe it's even a little vegetation growing down there, or maybe a little bit different bottom hardness. And so it's all these things kind of play into these open water situations, because generally when you find one, there's generally more than one there, and you can almost duplicate it. So dropping waypoints is really important. There's one. This one's got a chance.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that one's tipped back a lot better than those other ones.
There's none of that. I think I got one. I don't have one. Yep, there's one on there. None of that sheephead back and forth stuff. It's just that nice steady walleye. Are you ready, Matt?
Yep.
Yep, he's right here.
Ready? Oh. There she goes. There we go. Off in the net. There we go.
Yeah, it was one of these things where off to the net. It's just one of these things where we knew after those storms last night that it was probably going to be a slow start to the morning, and it was just all going to be about trying to figure something out. But we can obviously tell the way these fish are biting. Like the board hardly goes back.
Oh yeah,
it's
they're
like
back hook and
yeah, off in the net. Just typical like post-storm. Like the water's finally. I mean, it's warmed up 4 degrees since we've been out here. So I mean, things are starting to happen. We're starting to figure a little bit of things out.
Getting more bites now throughout the day, but
this crankbait's got a few bites, but the speed I think was one of them too.
I think it had to be.
Let's get this one back.
When it comes to fishing these big, vast mud flats, one tool that we really utilize is side imaging. Side imaging is a great tool because these fish stick out really good in this mud. There's not a whole lot out here other than fish. So when you see those marks, we're looking for more of those smaller marks. In this specific system that we're in right now, those big giant marks are probably going to be sturgeon, where if you look at more smaller pencil marks, those are going to be more of your walleye. But one thing you have to pay attention to is the shadow, because sometimes fish, they will look the same over the top, but the shadow, your more blobby looking shadows are going to be your bass, your sheephead, those kind of fish, where more of your straight and narrow shadows are going to be where your walleye marks and what we're looking for. These fish could be sitting off the bottom, obviously, so that's where you get that nice shadow with the side imaging, but 100 feet is a good place to start for side imaging, to the left and to the right. And when you're trolling, pay attention to that. Sometimes you might be a little inside the fish and you have to go left. You might have to go a little right. So again, just utilize your side imaging when fishing these vast shallow mud flats, because your traditional 2D sonar is not going to work as good as your side imaging is, and you'll be able to mark all the different pods of fish and stay on top of fish all day long.
Total Control, presented by Power Pole. 20 years of trust evolved from Total Boat Control.
So let's face it, when it comes to trucks, diesel trucks do an exceptional job of towing, especially big boats. They're built for it, they have the transmissions for it. But at the end of the day, you know, a diesel truck takes some maintenance and takes some, you know, taking care of when you start getting into those winter months. Because at the end of the day, you don't know what you're getting from the station. It could be a place that doesn't have treated fuel for those temperatures, and they might have leftover fuel if it's a small station that hasn't been treated at all or enough. And so one of the things I like to do is obviously treat the diesel fuel in my truck with a winter treatment. And but at the end of the day, I always want to carry a de-gelling formula with me. Now this is something you're going to use after it's a problem. Your truck has gelled up, it's cold, it leaves you stranded, your truck shuts off. And so by simply following the directions on the back of this, you're going to add a bunch of it to your fuel system through the tank. And then you're going to take off your spin-off fuel filter and add the rest of it to that fuel filter. And after 20 minutes, it should do the job of de-gelling that diesel fuel and get you back operational. But the most important thing is having this with you, because time is of the essence if this happens. You don't want to be without a vehicle and without heat, sitting there waiting for someone to come get you. And so to me, this is something I always carry with me, because until it's a problem is when it's going to be even a bigger problem if I don't have it. So I always carry this with me throughout the winter months.
Paying attention to the small details when trying to dial in a trolling bite doesn't stop at the weather and water conditions. Every aspect of your trolling setup is important, but what's most important are the baits and how you choose them.
Oh, here's one.
Sheephead again or what?
I don't know about this one.
But it is looking right.
It is.
Oh, it's a walleye.
The right flavor.
Did you have it back like 15 or what?
Yeah, it was 15 back. That one's pretty high. There we go. Go. There we go, finally.
Finally on your side.
I know. You finally let me have some fun.
Out of your mouth there. Yeah, just grab me a pliers.
Right.
There we go.
It's about time you let me reel one in.
Right? I mean, you reeled in enough sheephead today, but I mean, this fish right here is a perfect eater.
Oh.
Right now, where it seems like we're almost having to figure out the colors that the sheephead don't want to bite, and it seems like those are the ones the walleyes are biting. But just one of those things where it's like piece by piece, especially on, you know, summertime system when you have so many different fish biting, your white bass and your sheephead and things like that. You always got to find something different or faster or colors or crankbaits that don't get those bites where you can actually get to the walleyes. We'll get this one back. When it comes to this summertime crankbait trolling, one thing I like to keep in mind is always the size of fish that you're generally dealing with. And here on the Winnebago system, there's a lot of fish that are that 14 to say 17, 18 inches or so. And then your occasional 21 to 23 inches, so generally a little bit smaller. And so it's just one of those things where I always like to keep that in mind for my bait size and generally shape. So when it comes to setting up out here, so the first one is a staple out here and pretty much anywhere a walleye swims is the flicker shad. And so the flicker shad does a great job of having a more lifelike action, a very fast and tight action, which really excels in those warm months, but also that perfect shape that really allows you to match the hatch of the bait fish. And so it just does a great job of all of that. And so the next one that I like to try to get away with is more aggressive action, especially in dirty water situations like we have. You know, right now the clarity is maybe a foot at best, but more like 8 inches. And so that's where a more aggressive action bait generally it'll shine a lot of times and be preferred just because you expand your strike zone. These fish can't see that far, so the more annoying, the more erratic, and the more noisy a bait is, generally the more pulling power it has for that attraction. And so this is the money badger here. It has a lot more roll. I mean, this bait is going to displace a lot of water, even with this very small size. And so that's another thing leading into the baits that you're using, is we're really experimenting with different sizes. A number 4 money badger has definitely outproduced a number 5 today. It's just one of those things where more times than not in the summertime, a lot of the young of the year are very small at this time, but also at the same time, depending on the system you're in, if there's a lot of bigger forage, say your shad or maybe 2-year-old white bass or sheephead, generally, you know, maybe a little bit bigger style baits are preferred. But a lot of times, let the fish tell you what they want. Don't just give them one choice. It's the same thing with the flicker shad. The number 5 has definitely outproduced the number 7. So in our situation here, you know, going out, maybe it's the first time on the water, not only experimenting with different colors, but different crankbait actions and even sizes for that matter can really help you fine tune a lot faster and figure out what these fish want. And at the end of the day, when I start getting a few bites on one or the other, there's definitely going to be more of those going in the water.
Pike. There we go. Another species to add to the list.
A pike? Seriously? That bait is gone too.
Oh yeah, it is.
Matt, you want to get the pliers?
Yeah, I'll grab them quick.
This is definitely something you don't see too many of in the Winnebago. I mean, there's a lot of sheephead in there, there's a lot of white bass, and they can bug you, but you don't see a lot of pike too often.
No, nice little snot rocket.
Yep. But on these upper lakes, if you're gonna catch one, this is probably where you're gonna get one. So.
When it comes to choosing your crankbait color, there's a lot of things that come to mind. There's confidence colors, there's the color or the kind of forage that's in the system that you're fishing, and just baits that get reaction strikes. We started with an array of colors today. We're on the Winnebago system. We started with white, chrome-based colors, and bright, vibrant colors, and it seems like for us, these bright, vibrant colors are getting a lot more walleye bites than any of these other colors. So what we've done is we started with the array and we've narrowed it down to figuring out that these brighter colors are what's getting more walleye bites than these more natural patterns or chrome-based patterns. So next time you're out, be sure to start with an array and pay attention to what gets your bites.
The next bite is brought to you by Mercury Marine. Go boldly. Schaefer's Specialized Lubricant. Putting equipment first. Nitro Boats. Performance Fishing Boats. Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Your adventure starts here. Berkeley. Your fish, our science. Lowrance. The ultimate fishing system. And Power Pole. Total boat control. Hot topics, leading information and tackling techniques to make you a better angler. Presented by Mercury.
I've got a bunch of friends that duck hunt up on Lake Superior, and they duck hunt in the harshest of conditions, and it's super cold. Ice is formed all over the place, and like guys who fish in real cold water, sometimes their engines telltale signs where the water comes out here to tell you that the engine's cooling properly. Sometimes that tube's froze up. And you know, if you just let the engine idle, there's enough lubrication that it really will melt out and be fine, but it always makes me nervous. So in the past, I always took like a bottom bouncer wire, a piece of wire, and knocked the ice out of there. This is a much better tip, and I got it from those guys. It's a weed whacker, plastic weed whacker line. And the nice thing is it's flexible. So it's just about the right diameter to fit in here. And you can see it's easy to work it up, but you know you're not going to damage any of the interior engine parts because it's a flexible sort of way to do it. So, I mean, I think that that's one of the best tips that I've seen in 40 years of fishing. And it's a really hardcore type of tip that's come from a bunch of hardcore guys. And, you know, these guys are hunters, but, you know, they fish a ton too. So watching out for that telltale is always something you do, and this is a way to fix the frozen line.
The beautiful part about fishing the Winnebago system, besides getting a great fish fry, is it's actually a multi-species playground. You never know what's on the other end of the line. Between sheephead, white bass, crappies, catfish, and pike, you'll be busy all day long reeling in fish.
Ready?
That's a large one.
Yeah, you better grab the net. It's a pretty big one.
Better. Oh yeah, that's a pretty big one.
could lift it straight up. That's gotta be the biggest pike I've ever caught out here. I mean,
That's a good one.
you don't catch that many out here. And if you do, they're usually a lot smaller. Man. Matt, can you grab me the pliers?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
That one.
I mean, that's definitely the biggest pike that I've caught out of this system before. I know they ice fish some big ones in here, and I know there's a few around, but man, not what I was expecting when the board goes back. Obviously, Winnebago, you can catch about anything: catfish, sheephead, white bass, walleyes, perch.
Big pike too, apparently.
And we can add big pike to this. Let's get this slimy guy back. Holy cow. Right back here. Here she goes.
When it comes to fishing these big, vast mud, in these vast mud flats, and hopefully, no, I didn't like the end of that. But just pay attention to your side imaging and notice if they're left or right. And you ruined it when you both split the biggest fish of the day.
Today we're out here on Lake Winnebago system. Today we're out here on the Winnebago system, in particularly.
That's a hard word to say.
But in this particular time of year up here, there can be a lot of fish year to year. I don't like that. All right. In particular, we're up on the upper lakes. We're up on.
When it comes to choosing your crankbait, when it comes to choosing your crankbait color, there can be a lot of things that come to mind. Now I'm going too slow. It's another nice one.
Fat pike.